It's time to do rankings for the first week of the playoffs. Congratulations if you are in the playoffs. But now you need to know who to start. And so let's give this a shot, and let's start with running backs here. S tier, we don't need to talk a lot about these guys. We talked about them on the rest of the season. But, all of these guys are guys who are starting no matter what. Pretty much same with the guys in the S tier if there's anybody you want to highlight there. I'll start with the B tier here. Montgomery playing Buffalo is a must-start every week right now. Aaron Jones playing Chicago is a good matchup. Breece, he's playing Jacksonville. It's a good matchup for Breece. You still have to start Breece Hall, I feel like. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet are going to be ranked back-to-back here. If Kenneth Walker doesn't play, actually you can bump up Charbonnet to probably tier A because he's literally twice the back that Kenneth Walker is. And, of course, I have to find that out firsthand because I have Walker. Corey has Charbonnet in the Flock League, and Charbonnet beats me this week because I have Kenneth Walker out. What are the odds? You can tell I'm salty about it.
Very odd.
But they're the last two guys. And again, if Kenneth Walker plays, he's probably at the end of the B tier at best. Charbonnet is twice the back he is. Go. I can't.
Yeah, so C tier, you're going to start with James Conner. Jonathan Taylor will be right behind him. Jonathan Taylor at this point has a very, very capped ceiling. Decent matchup against Denver, pretty neutral, honestly, but are not expecting anything special from JT when he just hasn't done anything special really all season since that ankle injury. And then you got James Cook right behind him, who's been very hit or miss. Bucky Irving, the reason he's so low is not because we're trying to short Bucky Irving or saying that his production hasn't been legitimate. It's because he left that game last week early and his status is up in the air, and he has a really tough matchup against the Chargers. If Rachaad White ends up being the only guy that's playing, we're going to rank him pretty low too because the matchup is so tough. So this week, eyes on Bucky Irving. You're going to have to start him if he plays, but it's just, again, going to be up in the air, and we'll see about that. Tyron Tracy also has a tough matchup against Baltimore. He's been productive. We're just going to have to kind of temper our expectations for both of these guys. Rico Dowdle has the best matchup of these three, and he's kind of been on the rise. His floor has been like 10, 11 points the last month, and that's been pretty solid. So coming off a decent game against the Cincinnati Bugles, he's going to have a nice matchup against Carolina this week as well. So expect him to be a decent flex option if it really comes to that at the running back position for you.
D's tier here. Let's go to Tony Pollard playing the Cincinnati Bengals. He's fine. Najee playing the Philadelphia Eagles is a tough matchup for Najee. So he's going to be a little bit lower in our rankings for this week, but I still think you're starting him. B-Rob against the Saints is a great matchup. He's the best matchup in this tier. The thing with B-Rob is you really got to continue to get his feet back under him and get healthy. But with that being said, I do think that B-Rob is somebody that you absolutely have to start this week. I honestly wouldn't even consider it if I were you. He's running back 28 on the season. He had 17 points against Tennessee, though, playing only 47% of the snaps. Pacheco playing Cleveland. Pacheco, I haven't looked at his most recent snap count. It was 46%, a little bit higher, 8 points. Still not feeling super confident about that yet. He'd be a risky flex, I feel like, this week, so be a little bit careful there. Rachaad White, we already talked about Bucky, kind of the same thing. Rachaad White is worse, so if Bucky's out, you got a worse running back against one of the best defenses in the league against the run. And then Isaac Guerendo, let me see. I think Guerendo, I'm trying to see if there's any update, just so I have the most accurate. He didn't practice, and this was Monday, so I honestly... I'm not sure he's going to play next week. And so the next guy up would be, who was the other guy? It would
be Patrick Taylor and/or Izzy Abanikanda, and neither of those guys were as optimistic as starting as Isaac Guerendo.
Yeah, no. So we're not probably going to put those guys on this list. We're going to say is if one of those guys do start, you put them in the F tier. So, and that's the tier below.
Yep. DeAndre Swift will be at the top here. He's really been falling quite a bit. Ramondre Stevenson, very inconsistent. Gus Edwards had a touchdown. That's the only reason he was relevant last week. And then you got Jaylen Warren, Travis Etienne, Chubb, and Bigsby at the tail end of this tier. Etienne and Bigsby will still keep in the same tier together. Etienne had an okay week last week with like 11 points. Not relying on that long-term to be consistent. But again, we'll see. Nick Chubb, very touchdown dependent. You've got Braylon Allen and Tyler Algier at the top of the G tier. You got a ton of backups here, right? Jerome Ford alongside Chubb, Kareem Hunt behind Pacheco, now Spears behind Pollard, Kendry Miller behind Kamara, who also just had a touchdown last week, and then Kamani Vidal and Ray Davis at the tail end here with Antonio Gibson, who had a nice game against the Colts before the bye, and then Sincere McCormick, who had a decent game last week, and now with the Aiden O'Connell injury, we'll see what that offense looks like. Honestly, that offense overall is just going to become less explosive because they don't have a passing game. So maybe we don't give enough respect to Sincere McCormick. If you're in the playoffs, you probably aren't wanting to start Sincere.
S tier for wide receivers, again, no reason to spend time talking about these guys. A tier, we'll start with Terry. He's playing the Saints. It's a great matchup for him. Terry's a top 6 wide receiver on the season. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a lot of people are like, yeah, he's hit and miss. He's had 30-point games. He's had 12-point games. That's his floor. Again, he's not, there are going to be games where he's used a lot. In this game, the Vegas line's 54.5 points. He's going to be used in this game. Mike Evans against the Chargers. Tyreek Hill, tougher matchup against decent matchup against the Houston Texans. A.J. Brown, obviously in playing the Steelers, and that's a tougher matchup for him, as well as Nico playing the Miami Dolphins. That's a tough matchup for him. So both those guys have tough matchups. Not a ton of great matchups this year outside of Terry, but all guys you're starting no matter what.
Yeah, B tier is going to be very large. We've got Zay Flowers here at the top with Drake London and Cooper Kupp not far behind. JSN also going to be very easily in this tier. He hasn't gotten a ridiculous amount of consistent targets, but he's been very productive. He's a wide receiver 1 on the season, I believe, and playing Green Bay is going to be pretty neutral for him, so we'll see what he can do there. Calvin Ridley going to be elevated playing the Cincinnati Bugles. Levis just needs to get him the ball. And then Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams back-to-back in this tier. Again, you can rank these guys in this tier however you want. We literally do not care. You're starting every single one of these guys this week. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. Jerry Judy's been phenomenal playing Kansas City. Cortland Sutton technically has an unfavorable matchup against Indy, who has not allowed that much production to wide receivers the last month, but they've had some really, really favorable matchups. Cortland Sutton's going to be a tough matchup for that awful secondary. Then you've got T. Higgins at the tail end of this tier as well. Going to have the toughest matchup against Tennessee, which is why he's at the tail end of the tier. But again, if you want to put him at the top, don't mind it at all because Cincinnati's scoring so many points.
Let's do a little baby tier here. Start with Ladd McConkey playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ladd's obviously got to get healthy, but if he's healthy, we're going to start him this week. Same with Juwan Jennings. These are all some pretty good matchups here. Juwan Jennings against the Rams. Rams are top 8 in points allowed. Yeah. DJ Moore against the Vikings. They are number 1 in points allowed to wide receivers. Khalil Shakir playing against the Detroit Lions, who are 7th allowed to wide receivers. So all those guys have pretty good matchups. And we go down here to Brian Thomas, who has a bad matchup this week.
Yeah, Brian Thomas has the Jets, and he has Mac Jones again, who he's been producing with Mac Jones on the field. That's great for him. But again, he's very much more big play dependent right now. And that's not something you want to rely on when you're heading into the playoffs all the time. But again, if you have to start him, you're feeling optimistic enough that he's a good enough playmaker to do something for you. Then you got Adam Thielen in here as well, right after Brian Thomas. The dude has had 19 and 23 points since coming off IR with Bryce Young balling now. This is like the Adam Thielen of the first 2/3 of the season in 2023. Again, the dude just has not gone away when he's on the field, when he's healthy, and he's like the top option there right now. So he's been looking really good, and you're looking at him being a legitimate flex option the rest of the season. Jacoby Myers is going to be a lot more consistent high floor. Even with Desmond Ridder, he's going to be one of the easier targets. He and Bowers are probably going to be fine. And then you've got Malik Neighbors, very cap ceiling, but has the most amount of targets of anyone in this tier. Darnell Mooney had a nice 20-point game last week. Hopefully he can continue that against Vegas, who's just piling up on injuries. And then you've got Addison, who is scoring touchdowns out the butt right now, just like he did last year. I mean, at this point, you're asking yourself, are his touchdowns sustainable? Is that just what he is in that offense? After a 40-point game, even though he's playing Chicago, you're going to have their top guys in Chicago lined up against JJ, and Addison's going to be the odd man out, and he's probably going to have another decent game. And then you've got Josh Downs. Hopefully he can be healthy and ready to go against Denver. He'll be the top option there. He has really taken over Michael Pittman's number 1 spot.
You got Marvin Harrison playing New England this week. Not a great matchup. Devonta Smith playing Pittsburgh. Not a great matchup. Jalen Waddle, although Devonta Smith did have a touchdown last week. That was nice to see. Yeah. He's still a flex option. So is Jalen Waddle playing the Houston Texans. Jalen Waddle has been better as well. How many points did he have last week?
He had like 20 points.
Yeah, he had a good week actually. Up to wide receiver 3 or 33 on the season. So that's 2 20-point games in the last 3 games for Waddle. He's gotten 9 and 12 targets in those games. That's encouraging to see, and it does make you consider, especially against a Houston team and a Houston defense, where they've allowed the 9th most points to wide receivers this year. I probably think he's one of my top flex options. DK, I think you're flexing DK as well as playing Green Bay, but he just has been very hit or miss, and then so has D-Hop in that offense, which everybody's kind of hit or miss in that offense.
Yeah, so. Odunze had a nice 2-touchdown game last week. He's got Minnesota this week, which should potentially could potentially prop up his production. But again, you don't know if it's going to be Odunze or Keenan Allen. You give the benefit of the doubt to DJ Moore, who's gotten the most consistent week-to-week opportunity and volume. Odunze and Keenan Allen, it's anyone's guess. It's a toss-up. That's why they're both going to be lower. That's just a knock because it's a 50-50 shot when you're guessing between those two guys. Jamison Williams, big play or bust. Amari Cooper, really the same situation, coming off a 14-target game against the Rams. Don't expect that to happen again against Detroit. Again, we could be wrong there. Just kind of reading the room and reading the entire season for Amari Cooper and saying that he hasn't consistently gotten 14 targets a game, especially in Buffalo. Cedric Tillman, coming off the injury, has a tougher matchup against Kansas City, and Jerry Jeudy's going crazy. He's kind of fallen down our rankings just by default. And then you've got Jaden Reed, who can he do anything at all? Hopefully, in a matchup against Seattle that's neutral, maybe can be favorable. Maybe he can get like a rushing touchdown or something since he can't get any targets. Michael Pittman, he's just in here just in case Josh Downs doesn't play. He'll be a low end flex option, maybe in deeper formats. He doesn't really offer much upside, honestly, for you. Deebo Samuel still not producing, but he's got a good matchup against the Rams. Tank Dell, cap ceiling, but playing Miami, maybe they'll be focused on Nico Collins quite a bit, and maybe he can get some opportunity there. Same sort of situation as Pittman, just a cap ceiling right now.
Nick Westbrook's going to be at the top of the H tier. Obviously, you're just betting on him getting a touchdown. Keon Coleman, you're betting on him getting healthy. QJ, very hit or miss. Wicks, very hit or miss. Douglas, very hit or miss. Those are your last resort flex options.
Yeah.
Tight ends. Bowers, Kittle, McBride, S tier. Going to the A tier, you got Travis Kelce. He's been He's not been fantastic, honestly. I thought he would be better consistently, and he's just not been consistent is the problem. Njoku has been. Njoku is somebody you absolutely starting. You want him on your team. Hawkinson has been solid. Mark Andrews has been better than he was to start the season. So these are guys you're still starting. John, who you're starting. Freiermuth had a touchdown last week. You're starting him. And then Zach Ertz coming back off the bye week, and he has just been really solid this entire year. So, and then the last year here for Ty, I'll just freaking do all of them. Ingram, tough matchup this week, but doesn't have Lawrence, and that hurts him. Fergie has been okay. Cade Otton, Hunter Henry, Tucker Kraft. Sam Laporta, his target volume has been better. So he is somebody you consider streaming right now. You probably still have him on your roster. I think he's definitely startable. Just not going out of my way to do that. And then, honestly, Noah Gray. We're going to rank him above Kyle Pitts. We're going to rank him above. Did we even put Kincaid on here? I don't even think we did.
No, he's not worth putting on here.
He's not. So tight end's a crapshoot, though. I'll let you just go ahead and wrap us up with QBs here.
Yeah, so at the quarterback position, again, you guys have gotten used to this at this point with all the rushing QBs. You know how it goes in the S tier: Lamar, Daniels, Allen, and Hurts. Nothing new there. Joe Burrow. Have we ever even changed the S tier outside of adding someone else?
We added Burrow one week.
We added Burrow 1 week. It's always these guys at the top every week.
Week.
Burrow and Tua will be at the top of the A tier with Knicks right behind them. They all have really, really favorable matchups this week. Tua has been phenomenal. Bo Nix is going to carve up the Colts and crush their dreams. Kyler Murray playing New England. Every single one of these guys is going to be pretty solid in the B tier. Got your pocket passers: Purdy, Herbert, Love, Mahomes, and Baker. C tier will be Matt Stafford, coming off of a really nice performance against the Buffalo Bills last week. He's got a San Fran matchup that really is going to determine the outlook of both of these teams in the division, and probably that last playoff spot. Not the last playoff spot, because you're going to have like two teams. Well, yeah, maybe the last playoff spot.
Yeah, maybe.
It probably will be. So anyways, that'll be a big game for them, and I think Stafford's probably going to show up and be his old self and be amazing. And then you got Darnold coming off a 5-touchdown game. He's been balling. Jared Goff and Anthony Richardson, who all have tough matchups, but they're going to be in this tier. Will Levis at the top with a great matchup against Cincinnati. Bryce Young moving up these rankings because he continues to produce and look really solid, with Geno Smith and Drake May right behind him. And then you got your F tier. You don't want to be starting any of these guys if you're in the playoffs. Rodgers, Wilson, I guess you can make an argument. If you have to start him, it's not the end of the world. But Caleb Williams, Stroud, Cooper Rush, Jameis Winston, Kirk Cousins is just kind of ugly once you get down here. You want to raise your upside with the guys that we have ranked above them.
Yeah, so we'll be back next week with your Week 16 rankings. That's all we got for you today. We appreciate you. We'll see you later.